Hello crafty friends! In this video I'm going to make a card using the parameters from this week's Craft Roulette. How far will I stretch them this week? Let's find out. This week I think I did some stretching, definitely. This card I didn't plan all in my head before I started it. I had an idea, but I kind of went with the flow and let the card sort of take me where it went. This was the first step, was the postcard parameter. I had this postcard stamp that I did first, and then I wanted to make it look like an old postcard to go along with the way the stamp kind of looked. So I got some brown ink and I just started distressing it. I like my glass mat for that because when I want to put some ink on the edges, it really glides nicely off the glass. And then I have these, they're like marks. I believe this is an old stamp from Across My Heart. And it's just like a little mark stamp. And then this little stencil, which is one of my favorites. I actually don't ever put it away. I just leave it on my desk with these coffee rings. They're great for distressing. And then I just kind of wanted to go a little darker on the corners and add a little in the middle, but it still wasn't dark enough on the edges. So then I took, which is also always on my desk, a vintage photo from Tim Holtz and just put that right on the edges. And then the next thing was I kind of went through some layers that I wanted to do on this card. I also die cut a flower, which is up in the corner here, which I'll get to in a minute. So the next thing, I wanted to add some more texture. These are all my layers I figured out, but they were all plain. So I got this stencil out of my little stencil book that you saw, and I'm not going to be too accurate with the stencil because I kind of want it to look a little messy, but I did want to tape it down just to make sure it didn't move too much. Kind of adding some various sort of like heavy to light ink. It's brown. It looks gray in that video. It's kind of funny. Okay, it's the darkest brown from Simon Says Stamp saturated ink that I have. And then I decided that it's still not sort of marked up enough, so I took the stencil and turned it. So now the lines are going the other way. And I'm just going to add a little bit. I didn't go over the whole thing. And just a little bit of like a messy, just to add some more contrast to that layer of cardstock. And then I ink the edges with the vintage photo as well, and I try to go really heavy on this one, like letting it kind of go off the edge, and then so I see how I added it even more. I didn't get the glass mat out though because I didn't need a ton of it. And then I decided it wasn't dark enough, so I got my black. I always leave vintage photo and this little black cube on my desk for inking edges. And then I got my grip mat out to ink the flower die cuts. Now, I love this grip mat. It does need to be, I think, washed, then just wiped off because I had a little trouble with my leaves sticking. I had to keep pushing it down. So if you ever find that it's not sticking anymore, just a little soap and water, and they'll start sticking again. These grip mats are fantastic for coloring your die cuts. So I just picked the darkest green that I have with the Simon Says saturated inks. They are quickly becoming my favorites. They blend really well. I will still always have the distress, but I was sort of going back and forth between what other line of inks I wanted to start adding. And I got all the little mini cubes of this saturated, well, not all of them, but a lot of them, and I'm really liking the way that they blend. So I think I may start adding them to my collection, like the full size. It didn't, starting with green, the light green cardstock, and then adding the dark is one of my favorite ways to do leaves. And I also did the same thing with the flowers. And see, I started with brown on the centers, and then I add some dark brown at the bottom instead of starting from white, which I have done too. But if you have the cardstock in the colors, like in the lighter colors, and then work your way up with the dark, it takes some of the work out, and I like the way that it looks. So again, here I picked a yellow cardstock, and then I'm just adding one of my dark yellows. It wasn't dark enough, so I ended up getting, it's actually a red, but it blends so nice. I'm going a little lighter handed, just so that it's not like pure red, but this is the part of the flower that's underneath, so I did want it to be darker. And then I just used that yellow that wasn't dark enough on the bottoms to put on the tops, and blend it out, and it blends great. I love it. I set that aside to dry, and now I'm adding my shine parameter, which is the shimmer spray in for Tim Holtz that is in, I think it's mustard seed. It looks gold. It's a great, it does come off on your hand though, I will say that, but it's really pretty as a gold flecks. And then I added a little black. I wanted some more shine, so I added some of that to the postcard, and I set that all to the side to dry. Hey, just a quick reminder, please like and subscribe. Thank you! Next, now that my ink was all dry on my flowers, I am going to assemble them. I always use the back of this dollar store cutting pad so I don't get glue all over the cutting pad that's on my desktop to protect it. I have been using the Precision Glue Press, I think is what it's called, from Petunia, right? My Sweet Petunia. And I'm really liking it. It does get gunky at the end when you're using it. You have to clean the tip. But other than that, I love it because I was having trouble squeezing these bottles. They just never came out. I still didn't have a full plan yet on where I was going to put these flowers, but I like the idea of threes. That's why I cut 3 out, and if I didn't use them, I would just put it in my little bin that I have for die cuts that I didn't use. And I decided to put the stems on so that when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to put them, that part was already there. I did the leaves after. Now I'm going to assemble my card. So these are the panels that I decided to go with. So the postcard, then a piece of tracing paper, which is so thin it looks like vellum, but I have a little pad of it, so I figure I use it. I ripped the edges, so there's a little more texture behind the postcard. And then I added to my little panel that I made with the stencil and the splatter. And then I set that aside to dry for a little bit. And now I'm going to add my parameter for packing. So I have this twine that is left over from making packages and packing them up. So I thought that this was a great parameter for packing because it is actually packing twine. It's like kind of bulky, so I decided to try to tape it down a little bit with some washi that I got at the dollar store that I'm not going to use. I have that on my desk for taping things down. Now you see there's some glue on the back. That's because I changed my mind after I started adding glue, and I decided because of the twine that I wanted to pop this panel up on my actual card base, which I picked Craft. It's an A2 size card. And I picked some Craft. I usually go with white, black, or Craft as my card bases. Not always, but a lot of the time. And now I decided I'm just going to poke the flowers in under the twine and kind of move them around and see where there's foam tape on the back of them. So as soon as I decide I like them, I just push them down, and then I'm happy with where they are. I'm going to glue little, like I said before, I decide, I'm like a florist right now. I'm making a little bouquet by sticking things in different spots to see where I like them. And because I put little foam squares under the center of the flowers, I'm able to stick leaves underneath. And glue them down, give them a little press. Got a little glue on there, wiped it off. I'm a messy crafter, for sure. Cut the little stem off. I decided I needed a little glue on that end because it was kind of loose. and then needed a little more. I'm kind of like filling in the empty spots with my leaves. And now that I'm done, I feel like I need to glue down the bow with some glue, and then I used my squeezers to hold it together while it glues. And then the last thing I want to do is a sentiment, and I want to do that also shiny. So I took this die cut that I had, and I was having trouble making this straight because there's a part underneath that I didn't want as I'm taping it off. So I put my die cut in the little holder after I lined it up to see if it was straight. And that's how because I can never cut the die cuts straight when they're that small. Never happens. So I used a little Versamark, and I'm going to use a little gold embossing powder. I think it's from Michaels. And I'm going to use my squeezers again to hold it while I heat it, because I already cut it out. So that helps that I don't burn my fingers. And then I decided to ink the edges, but I couldn't really read the hello. So I decided to ink just the words because it's like a little cutout, the stamp. And I just wiped it off and put some foam on the back. And I was always planning on putting a sentiment down there. So that was done. And that's my card. All right, so let's go over the parameters. Postcard, check. Easter colors. I used brown for an Easter basket, and the flowers are yellow because of spring colors. Shiny, I used the shimmer spray to put some shiny splatter and also my shiny sentiment. And then the last was packing, which is where I really stretched the parameter by using packing twine. So I did it again this week. I really enjoyed making this card, even though I was actually under the weather. Thanks so much for watching. Have a crafty day.